This is FARFETCH Threads, our people podcast, where you can hear the real stories about life as a FARFETCHer.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to FARFETCH Threads, our people podcast. I'm Kelly Kowal, the Chief Platform Officer, and today I'll be talking to Pascale Colony, who is our Global VP of Business Development and Account Management. And today we are going to be covering the topic of women and business and the importance of female leadership. Before I even start and pass it over to Pascale to introduce herself, I wanted to give full disclosure. Pascale is one of my absolute favorite people. I think she is absolutely amazing professionally and personally, and I've been so excited to do this podcast with her because she has so much value and wisdom to give around this topic. So really excited about this. So Pascale, you have been at FARFETCH for over 10 years. Can you start by sharing your journey with us, maybe from the beginning until now?
Hi, Kelly. Thank you very much for this introduction. It's very, very nice to hear it. Yes, I've been at FARFETCH for over 10 years, and you know exactly this date because we actually started the same week, both of us. So it's been an incredible journey over the years. And it feels like an eternity. And I joined as the business development director originally, and I took over that function of signing contract directly from Jose, our CEO himself, who was the one back in the days who was signing our partners. And I came from a fashion wholesale background, so I was working with many brands and selling to boutiques, internationally. So I had a lot of contacts in the industry. And my task when I joined was to sign both boutiques and brands. But very quickly, we realized at the time that brands were being very difficult 10 years ago. They were not really engaged with us. And they hadn't really started themselves their digital strategy. So they didn't really understand, what a company like FARFETCH was doing in the middle of their relationship between their boutiques and their own brand. So early on in 2011, we decided to focus on the multi-brand boutiques within the industry. They're the ones that were really interested in our business model. And my task was to sign as many boutiques as fast as possible in as many countries as possible. So you can imagine it was quite a big, daunting project. So in 2011, I started recruiting for a business development team and hired them early 2012. And I'm very lucky to say that quite a few of them are still with us, to this day. And they've been such an integral part of, growing the business. And still are. They still continue to negotiate and sign. And in that period, very quickly to give you an idea, we've gone from having around 30 boutiques on the platform when I joined to over 800 now, or nearly 800 in 50 countries.
Amazing.
So it's and basically we visited every city, every town across many countries, everything that, we thought would ever a fashion boutique. A lot of them we knew already. And that's what we did. And I'm sure you can imagine that, it wasn't easy. A lot of people didn't understand what we were doing. So there was a lot of explaining and pitching and negotiating, as well as traveling everywhere. And this travel piece is quite interesting because with COVID for the last year, we've been stuck at home. Yeah. So we've gone from every other week being on a plane or on a train somewhere to absolutely not going anywhere. And it's really, it shows that, we managed to really maintain the business. We have such a strong relationship with our partner that it really helped us. And then after about 6 years of doing this with the team, I took on extra responsibilities and I was promoted to Vice President of Business Development, but also account management. And I took over the quite large account management team, which is the team that looks after all our boutique network after we've signed them. So it was a very logic step because I was already working with the team that was signing and getting them on board. And then I managed to link both teams much closer. And they were already working very closely together, so it was quite a natural progression. And my role now also involves dealing with many other teams. I'm sure you're quite familiar with this, and work very closely with the legal team, marketing, ops, finance. So it's very cross-functional to make it all work.
It's amazing to hear, sort of your entire history and your journey, and going from 30 boutiques to 800. That is a huge amount of change. And I would imagine in the last 10 years, the company has changed so much in that time. It'd be really interesting to hear how you adapted to that change and how you adapted your mindset over that time. I'm sure you've seen a lot of change in that 10 years.
I have, and one of the biggest change is that when I joined that famous week 10 years ago, is that there was 12 of us in a small room. Yes. And in London, and I think worldwide there was 30 of us, which included all our Portuguese colleagues. And now we're over, I don't even know, 5,000, nearly 6,000. We've been hiring so fast, and it's true that FARFETCH is a completely different place. And I've never worked for a company before that was that big, and it's definitely a very different place. And I've had to adapt actually over the years, and it's really strange because on one side I feel that I had to change, but on the other side, I feel that I've done it naturally. I never really thought about, I must change and do this. And I think I've learned and I've grown with the company, and that really helped me to get by and to adapt. And I have had to change my mindset. And I would say that it was mainly around, if I didn't agree with something, or if I didn't really understand it, I would really make a big effort to try and understand why we were doing something. Because if you go against something, you end up alienating yourself and sometimes leaving a company.
And one thing you are absolutely brilliant on is you're naturally curious, right? So I know we tease you quite a bit for always asking questions,
yes.
But it comes from a genuine curiosity as well. And so do you think that's helped you sort of adapt your mindset, when someone else you don't agree with a decision, or you don't agree with maybe a strategy that we're doing, in order to help you adapt? Is that something that you've had to sort of teach yourself, or is that just sort of natural that
I think that
more about the decisions?
I think that came quite naturally, because you're right. I do ask a lot of questions, and as I've always been like this. Even my mother, when I was a child, used to ask me to stop asking so many questions, but, and to also stop talking so fast. That was another thing she always said to me. But yeah, I think asking questions has really helped me to understand things better, and when I. The more you understand something, and especially in my position where I had to explain everything else to other parties, the more easy it becomes actually, and to be really prepared. So that's one of the biggest thing I would say is, to ask questions, to know answers, to understand why things are being done a certain way. And that would really help.
Yeah, I think it really goes into a key part of your leadership style. You're very natural, you're very inquisitive, you're very approachable. And I think, you've sort of single-handedly built your team. And like you said, a lot of the people that you still have today are still with you, which is a huge testament to your leadership style. So I think my next question is going to be probably more around leadership. So I would say over the years at FARFETCH, we've seen so many different styles of leadership. I think today we have great, representation of both women and men in our senior leadership team and our executive boards. But in the early years, that probably wasn't the case. And I think, the fact that we have representation is not by accident. It's very much by design. So, thinking about the early years and now, what are your thoughts on the role and importance of female leadership?
You're right. You're absolutely right. I remember actually, and you were part of that group a few years ago. We had a coaching session that was around female in leadership. And when I think back, there was only 5 of us in the room at the time.
Yeah.
So us two and another three women. And actually, I think the reason why it was just us is that maybe there wasn't other at the seniority level that we were at the time, and the company then I think made a very very big effort in looking at all the amazing talent we had across different teams, and to really promote and elevate the right person. And I think the reason why female leadership is so important is that we just bring a different mindset and a different point of view that brings a real balance, across a table or in a discussion.
Yeah. Well, absolutely. And you and I have talked about this, many times. I think at one point in time, maybe the leadership style was much more about a data-led approach. And it was, there's nothing wrong with a data-led approach, but it veered too heavily on data-led. And, I think something that you really brought to the table was, more about the perception, it's the intuition, it's the relationship building that is so important in your role, that you were able to bring color to that, to a room full of people who were very much more show me the data and show me,
Absolutely.
the black and white answer.
Yeah. And I think the part of my role with my team is this relationship piece, which is the negotiation piece, where you're trying to convince people to believe in what you do. It's very you're right. It's more emotional. It's very human. You need to be, and one of the biggest advice I always give to anyone around this, is to be true to yourself, because that really comes across as in negotiation. You need, and you're right, because I've been at some point years ago again. I think the company has changed, but I've been in meetings where I was trying to pass a point across, and I was kind of shut down by saying it was anecdotal because I didn't have all the the data behind it to support it, when in fact it was a really important point, and the other people in the room did listen, and I think and that really shows the difference, even within a leadership, that you've got different styles, or even between men's and women's, and I think different people react differently. So
yeah, absolutely. And I think it's really interesting. I mean, your role is very difficult in terms of negotiations and hard conversations, and just around the whole relationship building. And something that actually came out in the Women in Business survey was that women actually don't have as much confidence in negotiating or asking what they want, or asking sort of for pay rises. Do you have any advice on how to build that confidence around negotiating? Because I mean, you are brilliant at it. Like you're so good at it.
So it's interesting when I reflect back. Even myself, actually, on one side, I feel very confident. If I have to pitch externally, I know what I'm talking about. I have no problem really trying to convince people. I really like that angle. It's very psychological, and you get such a boost, by achieving what you're supposed to do. And this over the years has also built my confidence on that angle. But I also still get really nervous about doing other things. So for example, even this podcast, I was so nervous about it, and I'm like, well, why? You can sign a £1 million contracts and with no problem, and then I get really nervous about other things, and
it's
building
so funny, that, isn't it? It really is so funny, because I'm the same way as you, but yeah.
I mean, you the queen of presenting. I think you're so amazing at it. You do it so naturally.
I still get really nervous. Like I have like psychological tips to get me through it. So I'm glad it comes across as not so nervous, but I still get very nervous.
Yeah. But to come back to your question, one of the advice I would give, and it comes back to what you were saying earlier, is to ask questions. And often, even when I've started to coach people, and I've really enjoyed it actually. And sometimes when there was an issue that was being discussed, and I would ask the person, "But have you asked this?" And they would say no. And I'm like, "Well, why?" And they don't know why not. And I'm like, "Well, why don't you ask?" And I think a lot of it sometimes, it's a bit of a vicious circle, right? You're not confident, so you don't want to ask a question, but to bring you confidence, you should start asking more questions. And it's really to not be afraid to ask questions, because there is no bad question, right? So, and I think by engaging the conversation, by asking questions, sometimes I feel like I'm at the front of the class, always the one, raising my hand to say, "I've got a question." But I think it also helps you to bring your voice to a group or even a single conversation.
You're absolutely right. And I do think that is brilliant advice. And some advice that you gave me too was, don't take it personally. So I was in a negotiation, and if somebody wants to leave the platform, I feel like I'm letting them down, and I take it personal. And now there's a quote that goes through my head when, someone's not happy with our services. I always think, be more like Pascale. Don't take it personally.
And you're right. Thanks for reminding me, because this is, and I always, give this advice as well, because at the end of the day, it's not about you. If you try to, within your work environment, if you don't achieve something, or if it's not going the right way, it's not necessarily because you failed. It could be lots of circumstances that I don't know, the cost, the resources, the timing, and you shouldn't take the failure or the negative side as personally, because that's, if you pay too much attention at what people think about you as a person, rather than actually what you're trying to achieve, it can create a barrier, and it can really affect your confidence. So I hope it was a good advice for you. And
it was massive advice. And I still think about it still in this day, when I can feel myself taking it personally. I'm like, no,
it's not about me.
It's not about me. We're not the right business model, or it's not the right timing. And, it has really helped. And so that's why I wanted to bring it up, because hopefully it will help other women in these situations as well. Because that's probably advice I've had in a really, really long time. So thank you for that.
So Kelly, you mentioned you've got some tips and psychological tips. I'd love to have some of your tips that maybe can help me for my future presentations or podcasts.
Yeah, I mean, so I can give you the maybe my top 3 that are the go-tos. One, I give myself time to prepare beforehand, no matter what. It doesn't matter if it's big or if it's small, because I find, similar to you in the confidence, if I feel confidence in what I'm delivering, I am less nervous. If it's like a physical presentation where I'm standing in front of a lot of people, what I make sure I do is I ground my feet into the floor before I even start talking. And I take 3 really deep breaths, and it might feel like an eternity to you, but to the audience, it doesn't feel like anything. You're just sort of mentally preparing so that you're not just jumping right in. And I find I don't speak until I'm ready to actually speak. And then this tip might be a bit controversial, but it's a CBT type of a training, and it is. It's sort of called act as if. And you kind of say, act as if I'm not nervous, or act as if I'm confident. And you put your little keyword at the end of it, and that can get over nerves tremendously. So I'm like, act as if you're really excited and happy to be delivering this. And you start smiling, and you start really getting into it. And I find if I'm really passionate about what I'm speaking, I can quickly get over those nerves. But it is the act as if, and it's smiling as well. It sounds really weird, but it makes me feel a bit more relaxed. and these are the tips that I use. So I guess it's like sort of,
Great
preparation.
tips.
Yeah, obviously everyone
Yeah,
can prepare, breathing, and then smiling.
great tips. I will start using them.
So this year's International Women's Day theme is Choose to Challenge. What's one thing that you want to challenge?
I would say there's a couple of things. So one of the things I would like to challenge all women is to really be true to themselves and not try to become or try to act as someone because they think they have to in a situation. That's not them, because then it becomes unnatural, more difficult, and they shouldn't have to. So I would really challenge women to, to be true to themselves. And then the other thing I would challenge everyone is not to focus too much on what school you've been to or what degree you've had, and a lot of it, and I really like this in England specifically, because in France it's a little bit different. But in England, when you start working, often employers look much more at your experience rather than at what studies you've done. As I know in France, it's very different. It's what degree and what university you went to, and I think the way we do it here is, the experience is invaluable, and I think the more you learn, and the more you ask questions, and the more and I think the more you'll be able to thrive in a work environment, rather than really get nervous about whether you've been to the right school.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely brilliant. And on your first point, you're such an authentic leader that really does come across. But it is something that I've struggled with before, where I think, oh, I'm in this position, I must act like this now. This is how someone would act, and almost trying to mimic my managers or the people I report into, and that just so wasn't me, and I wasn't bringing value to my role because I wasn't being me. I was being someone I thought that I had to be, and I think that's brilliant. And also your last one about what school did you go to? I think I completely agree. I think there was a period of time in our company where there was a school of thought around scholar versus scrappy, and in a startup you need to have those scrappy skills. It is really really important.
Yeah. And one of the interesting things I find as well, that as a company we've gone through a lot recently. It's around all this conscious bias, and one of the points that I really took on board was to not always try to hire people that are like you, or that have exactly the same experience as you, or even though you've got a natural tendency to do that, because again, I think other people, other mindset, and coming back to male versus female, you'll just get much more different opinions and diversity, and it will just open up things that you might not have thought about yourself.
It's really interesting that you say that. And something you said earlier is working now much more cross-functionally. Do you find working much more cross-functionally helps to bring that different perspective and helps to solve some of maybe the problems, or bring different solutions to the table because you have all those perspectives?
It does, because then you can tackle problems or issues with different mindset. But working cross-functionally can, and you're probably one of the best person to know, it can be difficult. It can be really difficult, because especially different teams might have different ways of working. So it's trying to coming back to this adaptation. You don't have to just adapt to in our case, the growth of the company, but also adapt to different ways of people working with each other.
Yeah. That's it's such a good sort of insight into that. So I'm going to ask one sort of final question, as we're talking about female and leadership. Which female leaders inspire you, and why?
Oh, I only have one answer for now, and it's you, Kelly. I'm really sorry, I don't want to sound You, no, but honestly, I know we work together. We've known each other for 10 years now. But when I look at what you've done at FARFETCH and how you started and the different roles, I mean, I don't even know how many roles you've had within a company. You've set up and created entire units, business units. And now you've become the chief platform officer. I mean, it's a big deal. I don't know how aware you are, how big a deal it is. And actually, it's something we didn't touch on, but in in this tech world, it's often associated with male, and you are a woman in this tech world, and it must be really challenging. And I admire you for this. I think you're just doing it with so much grace and inspiration. So
oh my gosh, that is honestly
definitely,
going to bring tears to my eyes. And coming from
definitely.
you, who I think the world of, and I massively respect everything about you and your perspective and
Thank you.
everything that you've achieved. It's such a huge compliment. If you could see me right now, I'm so red and blushing, which
Oh,
never happens. But thank you so much. And yeah, it is sometimes difficult being a woman in a tech world, and I think that goes back to what we talked about, around being someone you're not. So there was a big part of me that thought, oh, I need to be very much this, and that's just not me or my personality, and I thought I needed to be more serious, or
yeah.
and if those of you who know me or work with me, I like to find the humor in things. And so it was, for a long time, I think I really sort of struggled with that. And as soon as I realized that actually it's much easier to be me and I can accomplish more as me, it started to become easier. And I think people see that. I think people start to respect you more too. And, for just being authentic of who you are.
Sure. And I think what's great with FARFETCH as well is that over the years, and we are a tech cross fashion company, right? But there are more and more female in senior leadership position in the tech world within FARFETCH as well. I think there's a lot of amazing women that
there is. And I think also what's really great about it is, I think people used to think tech as engineering, but actually there's so many different types of roles in tech. I mean, you look at sort of Sandrine DeVoe's role, that could be tech, right? My role is tech, but I'm not an engineer, and you have product and lots of different areas of tech. And I think it's important to recognize all of that, because I think we can get bogged down in thinking tech is just, engineering, when there is so much more within that field.
And I think we've really crossed we've blurred the boundaries, really.
Yes.
We've got loads of guys working in fashion and lots of women working in tech. So I think it's
I would
a good
say
mix.
one thing that is with our company I've always been so impressed with is that there's always been really huge respect for both worlds. So tech has always really massively, respected the fashion side, and the fashion side's always really respected the tech side. And I don't think we would have been as successful as a company if we didn't have that from day one. It always felt like a tech fashion company, but everyone very much respected each other's, I would say, individual sort of remit or opinion or sort of thought process on things. And I think that's been really true to our culture, and has remained true to this day.
It's true. It's true.
So sadly, I think that is all the time we have today. I wanted to give a huge thank you to Pascale for a great conversation on today's episode of FARFETCH Threads. I literally could have talked for hours on the subject. And also, quickly before we go, as the chairwoman of our business, or our Women in Business People community, I wanted to remind people to join if they're interested, either via our People community page on Workplace or our Slack channel. But it is a fantastic community that has been designed to connect, share experiences, and support each other, and foster conversations like we had today. So please do get involved. It's a fantastic community. And thank you to everyone who has been listening. Stay tuned, and we will see you next time.
Thank you, Kelly, very much. And let's continue the conversation offline.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening. Make sure you never miss an episode of FARFETCH Threads by subscribing to our Spotify and FARFETCH People YouTube channel. If you're ready to do what's never been done, visit farfetchcareers.com.